And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and we have a very community-oriented gentleman joining us today who just made a big purchase, but we are going to get into all that in just a minute. First and foremost, let's start off with the basics. We're going to let him introduce himself. Good morning, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm John Cavalier, owner of Cavalier House Books in beautiful Denham Springs. For the past 13 years, I've always introduced it as we're at 100 North Range Avenue, Denham Springs, Louisiana, but pretty soon we're going to change to 114
There you go.
North Range Avenue because we're moving right down the street.
Yes, and David, and I'm glad you said that because David Gray and I were talking the other day. Couldn't remember if it was 13 or 14 years. So there it is.
Yeah.
You started it off. It's 13 years. You gave away the big reason we're here to talk today is that you just bought a historical landmark, technically.
Yes.
What was the old Brown Cafe and Hotel. Lots going on there. But let's start off with you first.
Sure.
Want to talk about you and your wife Michelle own the bookstore. You've owned it for 13 years. Let's rewind a little bit. How'd you get into that? Because you have taken that and just run with it. You do so many things with books, and we're going to get to that as well.
So we both got started 2005. Book Warehouse of Baton Rouge closed, and we were both working there. I got a job there starting in 2003 and was handling a lot of school accounts and institutional accounts. So when Mr. Gerald retired there, we just started our own business, and we started Cavalier House Books out of my mom and dad's house. Started book fulfillment for private schools, institutions in the area, and did that while we were in college. Then when we graduated, 2009, the storefront was open at 100 North Range, and we saw the for rent sign, and we said, let's do it.
There you go.
So we jumped right into it. We didn't have everything that we needed. We had been, we knew that we were going in that direction. So we had accumulated used books and stockpiled them and fixtures and odds and ends and computer equipment and whatever, just all the odds and ends you need to run a business. And of course, we had all of our accounts set up from our business already with publishers and the bank and everything. So we just decided to go ahead and take the leap and jumped into it then. We signed the lease in June 09, opened September 09 there, and we've just been going strong ever since.
Yeah, indeed, and been kind of a staple right there on that corner of Railroad and Range, and very involved in the community. But before we get to that community piece, you have taken the bookstore, like you said, y'all participate. Obviously, you do the book fair with the library. You do a lot of book fairs at these schools and things like that. You sort of took that and transformed it into, not transformed it, but it was opportunity. Your efforts met opportunity when you got a chance to buy a book distribution company.
Right. Yeah. So 09, we opened the brick and mortar. And then we started doing book fairs in, I don't even remember, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And that's when we started, being more mobile, investing in our mobile fixtures so that we can go here and there. And then, in 2017, a local book wholesaler out of Reserve, Louisiana, they went out of business. And we just saw the opportunity. We said, hey, we were using them for a lot of our local titles, a lot of the hyper-local stuff that's published, locally, printed locally, warehoused locally. They were our hub for all that stuff. And we said, well, we're going to have to wrangle all that stuff ourselves. So it was just kind of a natural extension to start Louisiana Book Company so that we can, wrangle them for other people too. And so, that was a very serendipitous move, and it was a very sort of strategic move because it's really paid off, and it's getting to a point where our wholesale distribution stuff is rivaling our retail stuff. So it's right there with it.
And that's what you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Growth potential wise, there's more growth potential for the wholesale stuff, in general. It was always a situation of that, but buying the Crowder building is, going to alleviate a lot of growing pains
Sure.
for both of our businesses.
Sure, and we'll get to that in a second, especially how much square footage you've increased.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, talking about community, let's stay with the book community first. You are a member, and I believe you've had a board position with the American Booksellers Association.
Not the ABA, but the Southern Independent Booksellers Alliance. So yeah, we are ABA members and we're SIBA members. And yeah, for the past few years, I've been on the SIBA board, and I was the president last year.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's a great community to be part of. We've got our trade show coming up in New Orleans. Well, sort of an abbreviated get together, but yeah, we're looking forward to that because we'll be participating in. I forget the dates, but sometime in September we're going down there for that.
Well, I didn't bring you here to talk about that. So
No.
That's what calendars are for.
Yeah, exactly.
So, getting into local community, obviously you had been selling books on the corner for several years leading up to the flood. We all talk about it. But you became I don't want to call it a heavy-handed member, but a very engaged member in the Denham Strong movement.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the things, during that time, you and I talked a lot. And one of the things we discussed was sort of a revitalization of downtown.
Yeah.
So you wanted to be very engaged, obviously, with your community. So moving into it, when you're thinking about, that building's been for sale. Ms. Crowder's building's been for sale for a while. You've been tossed. This didn't just happen overnight. I want to start there. This was a multi-year sort of thoughts, decisions, negotiations. It took a while, didn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a big move on our part, and it's a huge move on Miss Florence's part as well. That's been her and Mr. Charles's, that was their life for 20 years with Crowder Antiques. So I definitely understand. She wanted to make sure that the building was going to someone who would respect the history and want to preserve it and want to do something with it that was going to respect the legacy of the building and make sure that it stands for another 100 years. Yeah, it was built in 1927, so we're coming up on the 100-year mark for it, and so it was in need of some love and care, and so she wanted to find somebody that could do that. And yeah, I mean, that's right up our alley because we love the area. We absolutely love the area. We've been there for over a decade, just down the street. And so it's a no-brainer for us where, when you talk about all the space that we're adding and just the historical nature of the building, it's a ton of work to get it, retail ready so that we're for people to come in. But yeah, we're very, very fortunate that, we have the capacity to knock down all the old stuff and still preserve the legacy of it.
Sure. So let's talk for just a second. I want to back up, and you said it was kind of a no-brainer for y'all. I've seen you a couple of times touring the site, and there's been a long negotiation. When you first had this thought, hey, we might need to expand or we need more space, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, business owners go through if you're successful,
yeah,
you have these kind of conversations all the time. What was the conversation like when it struck you like, I could just go buy Miss Crowder's building?
Well, it was COVID times. So the the biggest question mark is what's going to happen with the world?
Sure.
What's gonna happen with our sales? Where are we going from here? What's all what's actually going to happen with how's this going to play out? And so yeah, I mean 2 years ago or 2 years ago plus, whenever she first put it on the market. That's when we, first had our initial conversation with Miss Florence. But yeah, it's been, there was a 2-year period where we had to figure out, because, a large part of our income comes from offsite events, and we weren't doing offsite events. And then, figuring out what do our finances look like? What other areas of the business are we going to grow to keep that cash flow coming in so that we can, maintain operations. And, once we got all that figured out, that's when we started, more seriously discussing it. Cause then it was like, oh, okay, well, we didn't we didn't die, we didn't fall off a cliff,
Right.
with all of this. We were able to keep up with things, and we grew in ways that we never imagined we would. And we were able to keep up with it. And so yeah, we got serious about talking to the lender, and got serious about kicking the tires of the building and figuring out what it would actually entail. And so yeah, that was the biggest thing, was sort of patience of figuring out what what are our tax returns going to look like at the end of the year, so that
Sure.
we can supply to the banker to make sure everything's going to be okay, because we didn't want to overcommit ourselves
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so it's just been a long period of trying to be patient about it, and honestly not think about it, so that we could be more comfortable when we actually got in a more settled position.
Sure. 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 So, obviously this was an easy decision to make, but not a easy decision to effect. It took some work on y'all's part, but would you say that a lot of that was you wanted to make this happen as part of your sort of drive to improve the downtown area?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's in Denham, I don't think there's anywhere else that we'd want to be. We love the character of the area, and I mean, growing up in Denham, that is Denham, in my mind. So I mean, um, to be part of that and to bring it forward is that's a huge part of the decision.
Sure. So let's talk about the building itself. We've we've touched on it, but how about some exact figures? You're nearly quadrupling your space.
So it is a little under 3,000 square feet on the first floor, a little under 3,000 square feet on the second floor. So we're right at, I think it's 5,980 something square feet all total. So we're going to go retail on the bottom floor, and move the bookstore over, which we'll be going from about 1,700 and change to about 3,000. So we're almost doubling our square footage, which is going to be huge. Um, it's going to alleviate a lot of our problems, a lot of the things that we wanted to do over the past, 10 plus years, events, story times, things like that, where, in our space, it's crowded. You get 20 people in there, it gets crowded fast, so we're building in a lot of features, for the retail space, so that we can actually operate a lot more easily and do a lot more, make it a lot more attractive to publishers to send authors our way and that sort of thing. So it's going to be fantastic. And then upstairs is a big question mark for us. Right now we're just going to store some stuff up there and take our time with renovating it. So right now we're on a race against the clock to try to do the bottom floor, and then the top floor we'll take it as it comes.
Sure, 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 sure. Well, yeah, and I mean, office space, storage space. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, and that was the big thing, is that we're already doubling our retail space downstairs, and then we still have 3,000 square feet. That's just nothing but opportunity. So,
Sure. And what a way to think about it, right? So
mm,
when you're going through, because you already touched on this as well, when you're going through the mindset of what we want this space to look like, one of the things you already said is, well, we're trying to have a balance, right? We want a storefront, we want a retail front, but we also want to keep the aesthetic and the feel of this building, which is technically a historical landmark. So tell
yeah.
us about that conversation.
Well, a lot of that is just kind of paying attention to the building and seeing what it'll allow. Whenever you are uh, taking things down, you're going through different generations of repairs, and you're going through different generations of electrical and plumbing and paint. And so, there were some areas that needed some love and care. So, you go in and you start chipping some plaster that's falling off the wall, and you don't know where that plaster is going to stop. So it's a lot of it is paying attention to the building and seeing what you're going to uncover, what needs to be repaired, whether that be structurally or to make sure that the electrical's up to snuff or whatever. But also the benefit of a bookstore going into the space is, bookstore fixtures. We're not plumbing heavy, we're not electrical heavy. We're not doing some big demo and adding, you know, crazy electrical or crazy plumbing like you would have to do if you did a restaurant or something like that. So we're able to just preserve what's there, you know, pull down some of the old stuff that needs to be taken down, like that plaster that's falling off the wall that I've been dealing with for the past week. And yeah, you know, wall shelving is going to go over it. So a lot of the ways it's just going to allow the space to breathe a lot better, just because we're going to get the old stuff out that needs to be taken out. But then everything else that remains, it's just going to be kind of bare bones preserved, because we're going to go with um, an open ceiling. So you know, you'll see the old floor joists, which are really cool. They've got stamps from the Talbany Lumber Company on them from 100 years ago, which is really cool to see. Um, and yeah, it's just kind of letting the building speak to you and figure out what's possible.
Sure, sure. I get that. So, you know, now you've talked about the space and how y'all want to make it look, but when you're talking about utilizing a space where you've nearly doubled what you had before, you know, tell it. You already talked about something like story time and
Yeah.
maybe a book club or something. What all are you intending to do with the space other than just sort of spread out and stretch your wings?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you know, having operated in a small space, it's kind of like living on a submarine, you know, where everything has its place, and you have to be very precise about everything, where things go, and you know how you move things around, and there's a rhythm to it. And so we're trying to, you know, we want to take that, because obviously that's helped us develop a big talent for organization, because we have to be organized to function. And so we want to do that. And the way that I'm kind of thinking about it is, with those big, long walls and those nice, tall, high ceilings, we want to do just impressive shelves all the way down, full of books. Um, and then the thing that we're going to focus on in our aisles is mobility. So just making it as flexible of a space as possible. So things on wheels, having special dollies that we can move things really quickly, because the versatility of the space is going to be huge. Because we're trying to make it where we can have, the children's section will have a dedicated little storytime space, so that it's always there and always ready to go. And we're also trying to put in a little stage area where basically, whether we're going to have a reading or a lecture or a presentation, or even if we wanted to have a movie night, you know, we'll have everything set up and ready to go for the event. And it's not like we have to reconfigure the entire store to do it.
Sure.
You know, things will be on wheels. We'll just have to slide them out of the way.
Sure. And I mean, you know, one of the things, obviously, as a bookseller that you're looking to do is get younger generations more involved. What are some of, well, we mentioned story time, you know, anything else that you might be trying to do?
Oh yeah, I mean, just anything like that. I mean, it's going to open it up. Having it geared towards um, not just merchandise, but where we're having it geared towards being an event space as well. That opens us up to so many more possibilities. Whether we're going to have musicians come in, whether we're going to have an artist come in and do an art demonstration, story time. I mean, just any event that you could possibly think of. You know, I'm going to set it up so that we can pull it off, because it's there, you know, over the years, you know, it's been, I mean, there have been a ton of events that we've had to pass up because we just couldn't do them in our space. You know, it would require a complete reconfiguration of everything, and you just can't, you know, move half a store.
Sure. Right.
You know, and so yeah, that's the other beautiful thing about the 3,000 square feet upstairs, is that if we wanted to have just a big open event, you know, it's gonna, the elevator, we got working, so we're using it as a material lift, so we can shove some chairs upstairs for the time being. So we'll make it. It's going to be really flexible.
Yeah. Which is, you know, which is interesting. You know, how many buildings in the greater Denham area have an elevator?
Yeah,
Maybe four or five. You know,
yeah,
I'm not sure. I know a couple of those banks near the interstate have an elevator, but otherwise, I don't think many buildings do.
and it's a really cool. It's really cool too. It's got like these vintage, like brass the buttons,
Oh,
the
wow.
control panels and
Right,
everything.
right.
And the inner workings of it are really interesting to see too, because it's straight out of like the 50s. Um, it's a bare bones control panel, but I mean, just the size of the fuses and the size of all the relays and everything. It's just, I mean, they're massive. They're like big tarantulas, like
Right.
sitting on there.
It looks like it looks like old oh man, what like if you pulled an old TV apart
Yeah,
and just looked at all these giant, like one of the fuses looks like a giant, incandescent light bulb,
yeah.
stuff like that. Are you going to have
Mm.
one of the employees as part of the hazing ritual of the new building? They have to stand there in a butler suit with white gloves and let people on and off the elevator.
Well, no, so the elevator won't be open to the public for the time being, because we'll have to get it all registered and inspected and all that stuff. But it was great to see that the bones of it still work, because it was just missing a fuse and needed some hydraulic fluid, and worked just fine.
Sure, sure. So, when you're talking about, you said earlier, you grew up here, you're thinking about downtown Denham. It is Denham. It's sort of this, it's historical, obviously, declared an historical site. Your building is declared an historical site. When you're thinking about the front facade, and what people are going to see when they drive down, I guess you can only go southbound on that
Yeah.
side. But when people are driving southbound and they look at your building, what do you want them to see?
Oh, well, so yeah, we've got our great book signs that are in our old space that we're going to be moving over. And really, I want the windows to just be bright. That's the thing that I think about is whenever I drive down the street, or if I drive through any historic district like that, I always like the windows. It's kind of like window shopping while you're driving by.
Right.
I always like it when the windows really pop. And um, so yeah, that's kind of one of the things that we're thinking about is our outdoor signage. I've got to get a big hanging sign made, because the one that we had in the old space, one, it would have had the wrong address on it, but two, I think we took it down for Ida, and then decided not to put it back up because it was on its last legs.
A preemptive burial. Huh?
Yeah, and so, but yeah, our sidewalk book signs we're gonna bring over. Our outdoor carts we're gonna bring over. But other than that, I'm really interested in having it pop, just having the lights pop, having the front displays pop, and there are also some really cool. We've got those. We've got the transom windows that are up there too. So I'm really excited about Christmas decorations.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle's really excited about Halloween and Christmas decorations, because it's going to be there are going to be a lot of really cool opportunities with all those windows.
Yeah, yeah, and there are which was amazing for a building like that, because most older buildings try to reduce window count, obviously here in the South, but they bucked the trend, right? And
oh yeah, we're gonna have to do something as far as like energy efficiency, because those windows, we're gonna preserve the windows that are there, and try to repaint them and make them look nice and everything. But I think there's going to be enough space on the interior where I think we're probably going to go back and do like another window, like a reverse storm window, I guess,
Right.
because it's not going to be on the outside.
Right.
But because I mean, those windows, if the breeze blows, those panes rattle, and
Right.
you could feel the wind coming through them.
Right. So yeah, because this is just from my electrical side. The double pane windows these days, especially in South Louisiana, is probably your biggest energy efficiency change you can make.
Yeah.
There's a free tip for you out there. If you got single pane windows, replace them with double. It will help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, immediately I know upstairs we're gonna do blackout curtains,
Right.
on the sides, especially just because man, the sunlight coming through those things. I mean, it gets hot fast.
Sure. So you are now the second business owner to kind of buy a historical piece of property down there and redo it. Of course, Selassie did it right after the flood, right down there on the corner. As you sort of, going back to your Denham Strong days, thinking about the revitalization of downtown, of course, the city has bought the bank building and they have done upgrades and updates there as well. Are you hoping more people will join in on the trend?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. More owner occupied property up and down the street would be fantastic for everybody. making sure that we're minimizing vacancies in the area. Vacancies are a huge drain on business, you know. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, what the Salassies did down the street, that's definitely something that you know, I want to make sure that we at least hit that standard because they did an amazing job in their space.
Right. It is a pretty building. Did replace the windows. So obviously we've talked about, you know, your vision for the building, and you just said you hope the community will come together, and you want to kind of be a fixture piece. You know, you want the outside to play to these holidays and things like that, sort of join in on the festive cheer. When you're thinking about what you want to do in the future, and whoa, I hate saying stuff like that because it's like, well, what do you mean, McHugh? I don't plan to be alive in the year 3000. But when you're talking about, you know, 5 years from now, what are you kind of hoping that building will come to mean?
Well, so yeah, I mean, if you're talking 5 years from now, one, the response that we've gotten from announcing that we're moving has been just ridiculous. It's been huge. I mean, you know, I expected people to be excited for us, but the level of enthusiasm has been off the charts. And, you know, I mean, just customers from years ago that have moved away, that have moved out of state or are getting in touch with us just to say congratulations, which has been fantastic. So I want to build on that first and foremost. I want it to be a space for everybody to continue to enjoy and enjoy in new ways. So that's first and foremost. And then 5 years from now, the biggest thing, I feel a responsibility for that second floor where we've got to figure out what we're going to do with it, where it's not vacant, because we either need to be occupying it and utilizing it, or we need to be renting it out. So that, you know, other small businesses can move in and start or grow or whatever. Because yeah, I'm a big believer in just vacant space is just so bad for everybody.
Yeah, it's not utilized.
Yeah,
you know, and you want to give somebody like y'all did, right there on the corner.
Yeah,
2009.
Yeah.
Yep, and took a shot, and here you are. So, anything you'd like to wrap up with?
No, I mean, the biggest thing is just a huge thanks for everybody. Because, I mean, like I said, the response for our move has been amazing. It's been overwhelming. The number of people that have offered to help us, the number of people that have offered to help move or paint or offer, you know, their expertise, whether that be, you know, people saying like, oh, I'm a plumber. If you need anything, just, you know, call me. I'm really excited for you guys, you know, which has been absolutely unexpected and just amazing. So,
Sure.
I mean, that's the absolute biggest thing is just a big thank you for all those folks, because that's why it's even possible, you know. And I knew people liked us, but man, people really like us, and it makes me really proud.
Well, yeah, it should. It should. So, well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
What's that?
Just introduce yourself. Reintroduce yourself.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. John Cavalier, Cavalier House Books, soon to be at 114 North Range Avenue. Our open date will be October 1st. That's the date of the Fall Festival. So come hell or high water,
gonna make it happen.
We will be open October 1st at 114 North Range Avenue, and still operating at 100, but we'll figure out a closing date. We have to feel it out.
Yeah. Well, just like the building and your finances, you got to let the building speak to you.
Exactly.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember that we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. One last time, we appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll see you next time.